Okay, good afternoon, everybody, or morning or evening, depending on where you are in the world. Thank you for joining today's webcast entitled 5 Essential Steps to Mobile Strategy Success, presented by Ness Technologies. Ness is a $600 million technology services provider of software product engineering and business intelligence services to leading independent software vendors, technology-driven businesses, and enterprise clients in the travel, education, financial services, and life sciences sectors. Some of our prominent clients include Navtech, IBM, PayPal, Pearson, Quintiles, S&P, and of course Amadeus, who is joining us for today's presentation. All of your lines should be muted. Today's webcast is scheduled for about 1 hour. Audience Q&A will be taken at the end, but you may send questions in at any time via the QA box on the control panel. Please direct them to the host. For those of you who are following along on Twitter, we are also taking questions and comments over Twitter. If you are using Twitter, please use the hashtag for today's webcast is NessMobile. Now let's introduce today's presenters. First of all, I am Glenn Gruber, your host and presenter today. At Ness, I am the practice lead for both our mobile solutions and travel technology practice. I am also a contributing writer at T-News, a leading travel technology website, where I write on various technology issues, including mobile development, and have my personal blog at www.softwareindustryinsights.com. And my Twitter handle is @ggruber66. We're also joined by Jean-Noel Lau, Head of Product Management, Corporate and Services for Amadeus. Jean-Noel is responsible for the global roadmap of Amadeus's corporate booking solutions, corporate travel management systems, API and web services into the core Amadeus distribution systems, and of course extending those solutions to mobile devices. As we get started, first I'm going to start off with an overview of the industry and outline the 5-step approach that Ness uses to guide our engagements with our clients. Then Jean-Noel will talk about how Amadeus is integrating mobile into their product strategy and the results that they've achieved so far. So setting the stage, we like to tell clients that we believe that mobile is foundational to today's business. It's not a science project. It's not something that's kind of a nice to have. It's really a base element now of how companies need to be delivering their products and services and information to their clients. Increasingly, mobile is the primary channel for brands to communicate and engage with their customers. And the growth of mobile, as many of you know, has been really astronomical. It's been spurred by ubiquitous connectivity, the rise of high-speed data communication protocols like 4G, and the rise of cloud computing. Kind of to that point, I was reading an article the other day that referred to the mobile device as an edge device. I can't think that that's any further. It could be possibly further from the truth. Today, the server isn't at the center of the network as people used to think about it. The network is everywhere via the cloud. The mobile device, smartphones and tablets primarily, are now the central computing device for every user. So wherever they go, that's where they're increasingly accessing information. So I would say that it's really the mobile device is the center of computing, no longer to be thought of as an edge device. And mobile is no longer a nice to have. This was a Dilbert cartoon that came up last week that I just thought was worth sharing, referring to the PC as the grandpa box, which I thought was actually pretty amusing. So I think that this really illustrates the new reality pretty well, though, of really how and where people are accessing information, and especially when you look at the next generation of business and consumer users. This is really the only way in which they view the world. So now let's talk about a couple of statistics. No presentation is complete without the obligatory Mary Meeker slide, so here it is. I do think that this makes a very important point, though, however. underscoring the fact that mobile is really the center of user interaction today. As you can see with the little red circle, in 2011, actually really probably at the end of 2010, mobile devices, smartphones and tablets have overtaken PCs and notebooks as in terms of shipments. So there's been the tipping point, as they say, has been reached, where now mobile devices are really growing very quickly, and there's been a lot of data in terms of what has happened to notebook sales as the result of the growth of tablets, and it's been pretty dramatic. So dramatic that as you look at this chart, even the most bearish case for tablet growth in this chart from Silicon Alley Insider shows that tablets will be the fastest growing computing device in history, far outpacing everything other than the cell phone itself. And I wanted to share one other statistic that I found really interesting. This actually came out of a GigaOM webcast where the question was asked and this is from a few months ago, to corporate users, if you could use only one mobile device, what would it be? Not surprisingly, smartphones was number one. But what was really amazing to me is that tablets, which as of the point of this survey hadn't even been out for a year, and really at that point truly only with one product out in the market, fully 21%, almost 1 in 5 people chose that as their primary device. And really, probably statistically, it's almost in a dead heat with the laptop. So I think that this is really underscores that there's a significant shift going on in the marketplace. I can tell you that myself when I travel, if I'm taking short trips, I try and only take my iPad rather than carrying my notebook around with me. But the fact that tablets went from 0 a year ago to 21% in less than a year is just really unbelievable. Kind of moving on to try and provide a little context for the tablet and smartphone markets. Some of this information, I'm sure, is no surprise to people that Google's Android and Apple's iOS devices are dominating the marketplace, and both of them are growing in stature while many of the other platforms are receding. Google's at 40% with hundreds of devices out in the market under the Android brand, whereas what's also pretty impressive is that Apple's almost at 27% with one model. And according to some recent research from Asimco, is garnering more than 50% of all industry profits in the mobile phone space. Really phenomenal performance has resulted in their share price. On the other hand, some of the other players here, RIM share is declining. The BlackBerry operating system feature looks like maybe there's one more version, and there might be a switch to QNX, but that's not been, which is the operating system that they acquired for use with their tablet, the Playbook. But exactly how that transition is going to go is still a little bit uncertain. Microsoft launched Windows Phone recently, and probably in about a month or two will be releasing their first major update called Mango for Windows 7.5, Windows Phone 7.5. But so far it's been seeing limited adoption. I actually just saw a stat this morning saying that Samsung's Bada OS has a higher share at about 2% than Microsoft's Windows Phone at about 1.7%. Now, their deal with Nokia, that may have a major impact, I think, but Nokia's not looking to ship their first device until early 2012. So we'll see how that goes. I will say that from everything that I've seen from the Windows Phone interface, especially their Metro UI, it looks like a really great product. The question is whether or not they can get enough developer mind share, to be a mainstream product at this point. HP, of course, also bet $1.2 billion just over a year ago buying Palm, primarily for WebOS, and they put that at the center of their hardware strategy, not just for the recently launched touchpad, but also for phones, use in printers, and in some of their notebooks, they're going to be providing a dual boot of WebOS as an operating system, kind of more along the lines of Google Chrome, in addition to Microsoft Windows. So a lot to be seen how this goes, and I think that the game has a lot more to be played before we can be exactly sure who the winners and losers are. There's a lot of people look towards analysts for projections of what the future is going to be, but I wouldn't necessarily put a whole lot of faith into those forecasts. Gartner made a big announcement earlier this year projecting that the smartphone market will nearly double to more than 1 billion devices by 2015, and that got a lot of press. But there was these two graphs are some of what I believe is kind of brilliant analysis by Simcoe's Horace Dediu, showing that Gartner's projections aren't really nothing more than a linear projection of growth. And then when you look at the market share on the graph on the right side, other than some movements at the margins with some additional growth for Windows Phone and more shrinkage from Research in Motion, the shares are pretty much stagnant between 2012 and 2015. And I think that we all know that linear growth in a market and zero change in share in a very high growth market over a course of 3 or 4 years never happens. I think that the odds of you or I winning Powerball are probably higher than these assumptions holding. All that being said, the information is still very useful if you're looking at the data from a directional point of view to try and help you frame how you're going to move forward with mobile. So moving on, I just want to talk a little bit about tablets. There's a lot more play going on in the smartphone market, but tablets so far seem to be a different story as Apple continues to dominate the category that it essentially created. I think that this is a good chart. It's a few months old yet at this point, but I still think directionally is right. That Apple, who still holds about an 85% market share, could be even higher if you're looking at actual sell-through rather than pure shipments. That when you look at purchase intent, the number one product that people want after the iPad is the next version of the iPad. When you follow that up, so that's pretty amazing there. And then when you follow it up with recent reports that Android tablets like the Zoom and the Samsung Galaxy Tab are starting to sell better, but still disappointing in terms of projections. And further to that, there have been reports that returns of the product have been unbelievably high in the 30 to 40% range, which I think underscores some of the lower level of maturity in the Android operating system, especially designed specifically for tablets as opposed to Apple's iOS. Now, RIM is taking an interesting play where they acquired an operating system called QNX a couple of years ago, and they've made QNX the OS for the Playbook, separate and apart from the traditional BlackBerry operating system used on their phones. Now, a good side to the decision is, by all accounts, it looks great. The performance is really good, especially for Flash, although the importance of that is to be debated. But interestingly, they provided a number of different development paths for people to build apps for the Playbook. They can use Adobe Air. There's a virtual machine so that you can actually use Android apps right on, without any change on the playbook, although that's not yet working today. But I think it was a surprising decision, because what they've done is set the table for developers to not have to actually focus on developing apps for RIM's products, because they can simply just focus on developing Android apps and then hope that the emulation that's provided through the virtual machine is going to work. And I think that that's not going to help engender developer loyalty, which I think developer loyalty is really critical to any platform taking hold. And then the fact that they've disconnected the strategy from their smartphone OS, at least in the short term, is going to cause even more work for people who want to develop for RIM products. And the fact that it's two complete different development paths just going to make a few more challenges. HP, the web OS for tablets looks excellent, and not just on the ads featuring Manny Pacquiao. I actually used to have a Palm Pre, and I'm a big fan of web OS. I think that the way that it operates, the UI that they've created, the notification system, there's a lot of really, really great things about web OS, and I'm actually hoping that it does well in the market. And I think that HP's strength in the enterprise is probably going to be one of the keys to their success with web OS. And then lastly, I just want to talk about Microsoft. It looks like they've hitched their tablet plans to Windows 8, which is also adopting the Metro UI. But that's not due till 2012, and I think it's kind of intriguing that they've gone in the direction of Windows 8, a heavier footprint operating system, rather than utilizing Windows Phone 7, even though that they're trying to leverage the same UI. But I'm guessing that a lot of that is going to be based upon how they expect tablets to be adopted in the enterprise, and maybe linking more towards the desktop OS is part of their plan. Now, as opposed to the proprietary platforms for each of the operating systems, Open Web Standards is gaining a lot of mindshare, not just as an alternative to Flash for write once and deploy anywhere, but HTML5 and JavaScript and CSS is really, I think, capturing the developer's imagination, and that is highlighted by this chart, which just came out from Accelerator, who makes the Titanium cross-platform mobile framework, and IDC. It was actually just released a month ago. And the biggest change in last year's survey of what platforms are you interested in developing on is that HTML5 and the mobile web jumped up, almost doubled to 66%, and is now really in third place behind iOS and Android. I think that's a pretty significant statistic to take note of, and I think it kind of underscores the trends of what you should be thinking about when you're contemplating your mobile development strategy. So I've gone over a whole bunch of stats at this point, hoping to set the table. And I thought, so that's the end of the analyst part of the presentation, but let's kind of start to take a look at making sense of the data and figure out, how one should approach developing a successful strategy to integrate mobile into your business. So first, kind of, what is mobile? What are the definitions? From my perspective, first and foremost, location-driven, mobile engagement is really driven by context. Where are you? What are you doing? When is it? So the location aspect really should and can in many ways drive the information that you present at any given time to the user, and is probably a big reason why they're accessing their device and part of what they want to do. Also, it's transactional. Forrester Research predicts that mobile commerce will hit about $6 billion in 2011 and reach up to $31 billion in 2016. Very, very dramatic growth there. PayPal, which is also a Ness client, also upped their mobile payments forecast to $3 billion alone for themselves, and notes that merchants who are using mobile are seeing sales increases of up to 37%. Versus those who are not integrating mobile into their payments. Mobile is also social. Smartphones are now the most popular camera, air quotes, on Flickr, and things like Foursquare offering special offers and Groupon integration, and then sharing all of these deals and activities with your friends. I think that mobile is also the number one source of Facebook check-ins and comments, underscores that as a major area. Sensors, not just gyroscopes and accelerometers, but think about near-field communication integration for payments. Things like Google with their Google Wallet announcement a few months ago. ISIS, another mobile wallet platform that's being supported by the carriers. But also think of other things like Nike Plus with their integration with your running, and then the rumored Apple iTravel patents of how they're going to really use NFC to integrate the phone with the entire end-to-end travel experience. One other area that I think a lot of people still kind of almost forget is that a phone is still a phone. I find it amazing as I look at different sites and just my own personal usage, how many sites kind of botch the click to call. They either overlook it, or in some cases, even on the Contact Us page, I'm surprised that the phone number is a graphic. It's not anything that you can click, and I think that you lose a lot of opportunity to convert clients into taking an action that way. And then lastly, mobile can blend the physical and the digital. A lot of this is around augmented reality, which is probably still a little bit of a work in progress, and pragmatically is more of a curiosity than mainstream usage at this point. So when you're thinking about doing mobile, I kind of suggest that you kind of forget what's on your website today. That sometimes can kind of keep you in a box and just merely replicating how you've developed your desktop web experience or your desktop applications, and then try and shrink them into a smaller screen. I think you can almost miss the point, and then you don't give yourself that opportunity to take advantage of these attributes of location-driven, of transaction, of social. So just try and give yourself an opportunity to reimagine how you would look to interact with your clients, and think about what business processes should you be taking mobile? How can mobile enhance cross-channel communications? Can you reduce friction in your transactional process and improve conversion? So, and again, put that focus on context-sensitive opportunities, and I think you can do some really interesting things. One example that I like to share is the Boston CVB. Instead of just having maps of, here's the Freedom Trail and, giving people a guide, they've used Scavenger as a platform to create these, high-tech interactive tours with, gaming and mysteries that need to be solved, where you're, not just walking along the Freedom Trail, but you're really interacting with different things, and they're pointing out information along the way and allowing you to just, experience Boston in a different way than you might have otherwise. So I think they're doing it really smart, but this is nothing like what you would see them do in a desktop environment. And so, hopefully this starts to spark an idea of, how to think about it. And speaking about how to think about being successful with developing your mobile strategy, we have a 5-step framework that we talk to our clients about. I don't think there's any rocket science here. I don't necessarily think that this is greatly superior to other people's approaches, but I think it's a really good, pragmatic, practical way of thinking through it, and I think it's worked for some of our clients. So, given that we've got Amadeus on the webinar with us, I'm going to use travel a little bit as a device to illustrate some points. When you think about travel, mobile, I think it's really perfect, a perfect match. First of all, you're not at home. You're likely in an unfamiliar place, and then you've got all this information that you need to juggle, about itineraries or where you need to be, or if you need to find a place to go for dinner or whatever. And then there's a lot of other painful aspects of travel, also even just from expense reporting, where the mobile device can keep you connected at all times and make the process a lot easier and a lot more seamless for the traveler. So think about step one in our process. We try and say to you, focus on the use case. I think that this is the most important point to take away in terms of the process. You have to understand what role mobile plays with your product or service from a customer point of view. How does it support or extend other communication channels? What are the think about what are the gaps in your current communication or interaction channels, and how can you use mobile to bridge those? But importantly, also think about not just the kinds of activities that you think that your customer might do via mobile, but think about what are the behaviors that you want to influence. What is it that they're not doing today that if you create a simple path for them, you might get them to do more easily? And as you think about the kinds of capabilities that you build into it and how likely people are to use those, are these complex decisions that they have to make where they're going to want to do more research, or are they more immediate gratification or spur-of-the-moment decisions that people might actually transact and convert right at that point in time? So think about that. One example I think of, again, not just doing exactly how it is on the web, Concur does a nice job of streamlining the expense reporting process using the phone's camera to take images of receipts so that every business trip doesn't turn into an origami project when you get back home. And then, of course, there's the hunt for stamps to send that in. And, of course, it streamlines the business process from the company side as well. So, again, a really good use that I think that they do of taking advantage of, in situ use while you're in the trip, but also using some of the capabilities of the phone, like the camera, to make things work a little bit better. Lastly, another point I want to make here is, don't lose sight of your brand. Your brand, your company, your image has a big impact in how you want to position yourself to your clients. So make sure that that same kind of imagery flows through from to the mobile device and reinforces your brand promise and perspective. And I think that this example coming from Forrester Research is really good. That Mandarin Oriental, very high-end hotel chain, does a great job of integrating their kind of distinctive look into their mobile web and app property. Whereas the W Hotel, which is normally a very, very hip hotel chain, has this kind of generic utilitarian display, and it doesn't really support that brand. So just something else to think about as you go through. And then, but now it's time to think about, all right, now I know what I want it to be. How am I going to go about it? And mobile application is hard. You've got hardware diversity, software diversity, different carrier environments and deployment infrastructure. There's a lot to balance here, and depending on the path that you take, it's either a lot of work or a little bit of work, and there are trade-offs to be made. So step 2 is kind of prioritize the platforms and devices that you want to support. Month after month, I think Best Buy has these great ads about, as soon as you buy something, it's outdated. There's more and more products out there that you need to support. And so it's really important to understand, do you even know what your customers are using today and what you think they may likely use from a device perspective? There's a couple of simple things that you can do. I was actually talking to a client recently, and they weren't even tracking the device browser that their browser that the customers were using to access their site. So it's a simple practice that you can do to put in a little bit of code to collect that data, and then use that to analyze what platforms are important for you to support. And then also, what versions of a given platform do you no longer need to support? That should help, develop that map. And because fragmentation of your efforts, but also of operating some systems, is the enemy. Here are some statistics, the latest statistics from Android, and while they've come out with a lot of new versions, including Gingerbread and Honeycomb, and Ice Cream Machine has already been announced, they still have almost 1 in 5 handsets running, Eclair, Android 2.1, or prior. Now, more than half, including my relatively new HTC Thunderbolt, is running Froyo version 2.2, which was released over a year ago. And so the transition path is not very rapid there. You've got a quarter running some version of Gingerbread, and then there are 3 strains of Honeycomb, which is right now only deployed on tablets. So you have to, if you think about Android, you have to think about supporting a lot of different versions of it. But perhaps the worst part of Android fragmentation is not just the versioning, but then also having to account for the variations or mutations that each handset maker and sometimes the carriers have implemented, really just increasing the amount of effort to support the platform from your side. And Netflix is maybe one of the more prominent victims. They finally launched a few months ago Netflix for Android, but it only worked on 5 of over 300 devices at the initial launch. Only 2 months later, only 15 more phones were added, and there's only 1 tablet. So it just kind of illustrates the fact that if you don't have a good plan, there can be a lot of work to support as many customers as you can. So kind of leads to the next step, which is evaluating the different technology options. I think that this is a good framework coming from Forrester to talk about the different technologies that are out there, and you need to think about, are you going to go app-centric? Are you going to do apps versus mobile web? You have to start to think about trade-offs of, is it really important to support specific device capabilities or local storage, or is that not critical? And that gives you more flexibility to think about either doing a pure mobile web implementation or looking at some of the mobile middleware or cross-platform frameworks like Accelerators Titanium or PhoneGap. So those are just some of the things that you need to start thinking about. Just want to go pretty quick to make sure that Jean-Noel has enough time to talk and we leave time for questions. With regard to mobile web versus apps, just a couple of pros and cons. If search is the primary way that you think people are going to get to you and then look to convert, if you think that maybe there's not going to be a lot of repeat use, that people might look to download your app, then mobile web is likely the way to go, and certainly that takes care of cross-device support pretty easily, even though not all mobile browsers are created equal, though most are based on WebKit. Some of the implementations, there are still some tweaks to do, but it makes life a lot easier. And then some of the cons are latency, lose a little bit of screen real estate and all, but that's one path to go down. And then thinking about the app side, one of the great things is that people download a lot of apps. So I think some of the stats are that there are more than 60 apps downloaded for every Apple device sold. You can create a much more robust user experience. You get to fully leverage every aspect of that device. And then in terms of placement of the icons for the different apps, there's a lot of value there as well. But one of the things to be concerned about is don't just rely on app stores for distribution. That becomes a bit more of a challenge. And be careful about understanding their rules. There was just an article last week about some of the challenges with Amazon's App Store that shows that Amazon actually gets to set the price of your app to whatever they want, whenever they want, without any of your input. They can rewrite your description at their discretion, and then if you want to remove your app from their store, you have to ask them for written permission via email. So there's just a lot of things to be aware of as you're stepping through the process. So once you figured out what you want the app to do, what devices you want to support, what technical approach that you're going to take, some people try and do everything all at once, and I think that that's not the best way to go. You need to create a roadmap for your mobile development plan the same way that you would for a product roadmap. So don't look at this as a project. It's not a science project that you do once and again. Develop a release schedule. Use agile development methods so that you can kind of continuously update it, and also making sure that you're overlaying your mobile development strategy with your application development strategy. So any new features that you might release on your app, you can, if not release on the mobile version at the same time, at least fast follow. So make sure that you're marrying those two. And then, finally, I'll say, analyze and adjust that roadmap that you create is not the roadmap that you're going to deliver at the end of the day. You always have to be looking at, what's changing in my user base, what new devices are coming out, or are new platforms kind of taking hold, and then look at that usage. Where are they using it? When are they using it? What are they using? And then reevaluate your path from there. So it's really a continuous review and continuous change. If Windows Mobile really Windows Phone really blows it out, or WebOS does well, you may have to reevaluate the strategy that you take. So just always, kind of be on the lookout. And then, very short commercial, Ness, we really can help all of our clients all along the mobile development lifecycle, from strategy to development and testing. And it's all supported by a center of excellence that we have that has three main missions, which is knowledge management, just kind of collecting best practices across all of our experiences and being able to reuse that knowledge for the benefit of all of our clients, provide technical guidance to each team, and then talent management as well, making sure that we have people who are up to speed on the latest technologies and trends to deliver best for our clients. So with that, I now want to turn it over and introduce Jean-Noel Lau from Amadeus, and he will tell you a little bit about Amadeus, and then how Amadeus is leveraging mobile for their business. Jean-Noel?
Thank you, Glenn. Will you be operating the slides or sending me the ball?
No, I got it. You just tell me when you want me to go to the next one.
Okay. So the first slide is to introduce you to a paper that we have developed together with Travel Tech Consulting. So you can download the paper from our website, where we studied the current capacities and also the future around air travel, and how we believe that mobile will transform that future, and also related and touching it to a concept we call the always connected traveler, which does relate quite well with the findings that Glenn developed early on. So if we go to the next slide, just to touch a few words on Amadeus, so we like to present ourselves today as an IT partner, and also as the largest transaction processor in travel today. So as you can guess, our business model is a purely transaction-based model, and we operate globally in a quite fantastic industry, which is the travel industry, and also in the travel technology market. So basically, our core business is around two business lines, which are distribution and then IT solutions. What is interesting between these two business lines is that they are highly synergistic, meaning whatever investment we do in one benefit the other, and the customer base also interact within the same ecosystem. In terms of basic figures, Amadeus represents $3.9 billion US dollars of revenues for an EBITDA of $1.48 billion. So it is a business which is highly profitable. Okay, so I believe the best way we can really portray Amadeus would be that the Amadeus platform is something that will connect the complex travel ecosystem together. Between the travel providers, between the travel agencies and the travel buyers, and what interests us today quite a lot, which is the consumers and the general public, and obviously also the business consumers, if you like, meaning the employees of corporations. So if we get to the next slide, I go a little bit more into how exactly we operate. Again, we operate a two-sided business model. On one side, you have the travel providers, and on the other side, you have the travel distributors and travel consumers. And the business model works quite simply. It's the more we have properties, the more we have content and providers, the more we can attract and present a single point of contact for our distributors, for them to be able to distribute efficiently and profitably these travel providers. Same-wise, the larger we have a network of travel distributors, the more our platform becomes attractive to the travel providers, because just by working with us and through us, they can really reach a distribution network that they would be hard-pressed to achieve on their own. Obviously, this model gets in a virtuous circle, which brings more revenue, which allows us to invest more in IT, getting better products, which improves our platform, and obviously get a real virtuous circle and fuel this two-sided business model. So when you look at this, you all know the travel business. Now, I hope in a few words you know a little bit better Amadeus. If we look at the next slide, we can look at how and what really mobile is going to mean to travel in such. When you look at the chain you have today, basically we can say that travel can really be into these 10 steps. Two main steps relative to what happens pre-booking. Mostly you have a need to travel, you sort of research your destination and select where you want to go. That works both on business and leisure, by the way. The second, you're going to drill down and research your key travel items, maybe air or train or things like this. Then additional travel items, these can be hotels, how you're going to do the transportation on the spot. Obviously, then you have to book. You need the booking information. You need the e-ticket to be able to board the plane if we get air travel. Then you have everything related to your pre-trip before you travel. And more now you have the influence of social network where you're going to share what you want to do either on LinkedIn or Facebook or other stuff. Your journey itself, the stay, the travel back, and then something, again, new that is coming, the ability to post the trip, to share the experience, to give feedback and stuff like this. Now, when you look at what has happened up to today, I would say most of it, and the great value and the traditional value and expertise that travel professional and also the travel technology as such was bringing to consumer was really focused on step 4 and 5. Internet has brought ability to get a bit more in terms of trip sharing, research and stuff like this, but never really was there something that really was focused in an organized way as steps 4 and 5 towards consumers really. Now, enter mobile. when you look at mobile, and you remember what we have seen through Glenn's presentation, you can already see that with the mobile, you have the reach, the potential to reach every single step of what we see here. And where we believe that mobile is going to really change travel, it's a unique way to connect to the traveler anywhere in this chain, and really anywhere. And this also brings the ability, as you have that relationship and this connectivity with the traveler and the consumer, well, you have the ability to start and bring value to them beyond the traditional ways, which were basically when you book and you're providing the ticket. So this is where we play and where we believe Amadeus has a role to play as a transaction processor and IT partner. So if we go to the next slide, that's our mission. Our mission is to be the leading provider of IT solution that enables success in the travel and tourism industry. So what does that mean? It means that what we want to do through mobile, and that we're focused to do, is to provide to our system and to our platform more reach and more ability to sustain this virtual circle. It means that we're going to position ourselves to provide to our customers, meaning the travel providers, the airlines, the train companies, the car rental companies, with more ways to leverage their business through mobile, through technology. And same-wise, what we want to bring is to our customers that are travel distributors, more ways to reach out and to connect with travel consumers and to bring more service. Really, if you want, a positioning like B2B2C rather than a B2B2C positioning. So our intent, our commercial intent, and the way we are going to develop mobile within our travel strategy is how can we sustain our core business and leverage the new capacities of mobile to that extent. So next slide is an illustration of really where we want to go. So obviously what we want to do is use mobile to extend our existing product range and look at the opportunity of new products. Where we also see things is that when you see mobile is a bit of a shortcut, we really see there are several mobile platforms which are more vectors to reach the consumer and to reach the customer rather than the end in itself. Okay, we're not really here to create apps or anything. It's really how can we use various mobile platforms to reach out to our customers and the customers of our customers to enable us to get better business. So really where we see the 5 vectors, which will be how can we reach people today. I really liked what Glenn was mentioning around a phone is still a phone. So today, the universal way to reach people is often the SMS. So we have to find ways to communicate and exchange with people in a way that is what we call UI-less. It can be SMS, it can be mail. Obviously, we have the tablet, which we believe today is going to be absolutely central to anything that's going to happen around mobility. Apps is now the standard way to approach mobile, and it really gives us and the brand a place on the mobile, which is a bit different from the approach that you can get through a mobile website. But still, the mobile website is going to bring you the flexibility of reaching people and reaching more type of device. And finally, again, relative to the way our business functions and the end objective of Amadeus, which is to fuel our transaction business, what we want to build is a mobile SDK, which is more and more facilitating access to an active range of developers to connect to the Amadeus host through a specific set of web services that will enable them to consume our transactions in a better way. So we believe that by this way, we can really fuel our customers if, for example, tomorrow an airline wants to work with their own IT department or an external company which they feel comfortable with, and still want to connect to our host and consume our services around mobile, what we want to do is to really facilitate that and foster that. Okay? So if we go to the next slide, that's I would say the key takeaways that we have found around mobile. Since the beginning, when we saw this trend around how mobile was changing the way computing was being made, and the social dynamics behind mobility, we immediately have found that it was a fresh and clean canvas for innovation. What we also found very, very quickly was that the mobile app market was nothing like the web of yesterday. Things that could work and have worked very successfully for us in terms of e-commerce could not be applied to mobile, the mobile industry. To give you a very simple example, getting a website operating on e-commerce is already a significant investment, and it's complicated. You have to reach the people, you have to communicate. The technology itself is fairly complex, and it's quite a massive investment. And now, when you look at the app market, on top of the complexity of the development itself, you also have to deal with the range and fragmentation and of devices, of operating systems, of applications versus web. So it can get extremely complex, and by complexity and fragmentation, it can also get exponentially expensive. So the way we are approaching it, and what I wanted to demonstrate until now, was really what we have to do is to focus on what our business does. Our business is transactional platform IT provider, and we're sticking to it. And everything related to mobile is how can we perform better, how can we reach better, and how can we reinvent our business based on the potential of mobile towards the commercial outcomes that we want. And here is where Ness also did help us, where we created and designed where we wanted to go, and Ness did help us to get hold of that complexity of several typically mobile devices and handling. Once we have created the prototype and the first branch on iPhone, then they can help us to roll it out on several platforms, typically Android or Windows 7. So if we go to the next slide, I have a couple of examples. This is a free app that we are deploying. It's quite well used. Today we have several millions of users of Check My Trip worldwide, and increasingly we are seeing download of the apps. Basically, what this allows you to do is to download your trip on the system and get various live updates and of what's happening with the providers. Knowing that what you knew before and demonstrated before, everything is connected, and we have every information from the travel chain. To give you an example, today we operate the passenger system of British Airways or Lufthansa or Air France, and we know we are the one who deal with their check-in and the way they board passengers. We're also the people that are operating the tools behind the travel agencies setting and booking the travel. So we really have the wealth of information. And then the mobile is what gives us the missing link to reach out and connect to the consumer and provide that access to this wealth of information. So if we get to the next slide, again, a last illustration is how we merge this technology with an existing technology that we have, which is the corporate booking tool. I suppose most of you are using today corporate booking tools to book your travel. This technology provides us the ability to extend this reach today in trip consultation and very soon in trip booking into the hands of the traveler. Again, the concept is mobile is another channel and it is also the extension of the existing channel and of the product reach. So all in all, for us, mobile, just to close, is that fresh canvas of innovation. So we can see the potential. Now, what we have to really focus on is the business outcome. Which ends my part. Glenn, back to you.
Thank you, Jean-Noel. That was great. It's almost at the top of the hour, but we do have a couple of minutes for questions. So we'll see if there are a couple that we will take. Just kind of going through the list here. Here's one that came in, which is from someone who says they have a fairly significant investment in Flash for their traditional website. So, how do you think about leveraging those assets for mobile? I'll make a couple of comments, and then Jean-Noel, if you have anything that you'd like to add, you can jump in afterwards. This is not an uncommon issue. There's been very well publicized battles between Steve Jobs and the folks at Apple with Adobe over Flash and what's open and what's not. So I would say that in this debate, it's nice to see that Adobe is really putting a focus on expanding the capabilities of their design tools, which are still by far the leading design tools in web development, to support HTML5 directly. And they've created a couple of new capabilities in CS5 to allow you to export for native code for iOS as well, using the same code that you had already built. And I think that that's another positive step. But I think that the fact that they've done that is not just important from a porting perspective and reusing the code assets that you have, but I think it's also a very strong development given that you also have developer assets. The people that have developed those apps in Flash, they know your business. They're smart people. They're very good at using these tools. So the fact that they can now use these tools to work in using open web standards to develop apps and mobile sites for any and all platforms, I think is a huge benefit. So I think that you really need to, number one, try and understand how many people today are trying to access or are accessing your application, and via what devices, and is Flash kind of critical, or if 95% of your users are using iOS, then I think you need to be a little bit more aggressive, in adopting a stance to move away from Flash. But that's for each case to look at, individually. Jean-Noel, anything that you might suggest or add to that one?
Not at this point.
Okay. And all right, so one other thing that I'll just mention regarding Flash is that there's clearly some performance hits that can happen based on doing all of the rendering of the animation and using of CPU cycles. So there is hardware acceleration today, and certain versions of the Android and other operating systems support that. And there's also dual core chips in some phones, but I think you again also have to not just say, oh, my problem is solved because of that, but also remember that there's still the number of phones that support hardware acceleration and have dual core CPUs today is still fairly limited, and it's not more and more the carriers have gotten more aggressive with how quickly you can re-up and get a new phone with the with the discount. So it's almost the full 2 years of your initial contract. I think Verizon's 20 months before you can try and get an upgraded phone at the contract price. So your customers are going to be holding on to their phones for a longer and longer period of time. So these new capabilities are out there, but you're still going to see a little bit of a lag. Jean-Noel, one of the questions also that came in was directed to you. Are there any kind of key lessons that Amadeus has learned about adopting mobile and some of the different technology choices that you've made that in retrospect you wish that maybe you went left instead of right, and kind of any lessons learned that you could share?
Yes, actually we jumped on the mobile wagon quite early, and one might say too early. At one point in time, I would say even 3-4 years ago, we started to work on a Java platform on a premise saying what we want to do is to reach all the phones, and what is common is, or mostly common is, most of the phones are going to be able to operate Java. So what we did was we based our initial development on a Java framework, and quickly we found out that we were starting to get limited to the lowest common denominator of all the phones. And then, bang, we didn't expect how quickly the smartphone took over and became a really standard. And the thing is, we also found out very quickly that the people we actually wanted to reach in terms of our software were the people that had smartphones. So we had to rethink our strategy on there, and sort of almost dump everything we had done before and reinvest into the smartphone area. Now, the question now was, which one? And we took a bet. We started with one, and I believe that was the right choice, because starting with one already gives you a massive reach and a massive segment that you can have. And then you can decide, okay, that works, so I extend. Trying to have the same software and say, I'm going to hit all operating system and all devices, or all major ones at the same time, gives you a very high, I'd say, multiply by 4 your initial investment, and multiply at least by 2 your time to market, where if you just go iteratively, try it on iPhone or Android or whatever, get it to work, get feedback, and then decide which one you put on the multiple platforms. I'd say the key learnings is this, is saying it doesn't work the same way. It doesn't work as the web. It has its own ways and patterns, and you have to play the system. You have to play that it's a very fragmented customer base. And I would say you don't really care if your application on iPhone and Android are not exactly the same. It's very rare to have one person having at the same time an iPhone and an Android. So the people will be quite happy. What they do want is that the software works well with their device. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think that was very good. We're a little bit past the hour, so just going to try and do 2 questions real quick. 2 last ones. One is very simple. Someone asked, what does SDK stand for? And that stands for Software Development Kit. And usually all the operating systems provide one, which is a guide of how to develop specifically for their platform. And then the last question that we'll do before we hop off is, what tools do you use to help model mobile use cases? And there I think that I would just suggest using RAD tools, rapid application development tools that help you create visualizations of the application and how it would go graphically, and even do a little bit of application process, things like iRise, and there's any number of apps that are out there, but that's typically what we would try and do to map out, the approach that we would take to map out the use cases and how you'd set up the application visually before going and building the app, because you don't want to start coding before you've kind of got those use cases and that functionality laid out at a point where you're comfortable. So with that, I think that we'll end because we're 7 minutes past the hour. On the screen here, you'll see contact information for myself and Jean-Noel. If you have further questions, I would feel free to reach out to me, both via email, phone, and my Twitter handle is out there again as well. This was a lot of fun. I want to thank everyone for attending. I certainly want to thank Jean-Noel once again for his performance and presentation here today. We very much appreciate the relationship that we have with Amadeus and the time that he took to share his perspective with all of us. So with that, enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your summer. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.